Dear brothers and sisters, let us continue the book reading. Commentary on 10 Maxims of Surgemark, written by Babuji Maharaj. Second maxim. Many forms of the current came into being from the origin. All these things had descended, or in other words, had come from their original source. All these things were not useless, but these were the powers which started functioning in different forms. And these powers showed their such influence which was needed wherever required. In fact, they were powers which began to act in numerous ways and produced their specific effects according to the needs. All these powers manifested from their original source in the form of currents and displayed their specific actions. Take the case of a baby which could not even move at one time. He came and developed to stand, sit, talk, and run. That is to say, those capacities which were in him began to develop and grow. The full vigor of man did finally bloom. That which was compressed in a baby in the beginning has taken up a different form after development and growth. What was the original? It was the same drop which came to its share. Now, many things began to get mingled in it, which we have named as veils within veils. How has it happened? The habits of the mother and their effect, the thoughts of the father, the method of training, and thereafter the things created due to the influence of others. All these began their own actions and reactions and established the superficial impressions, and those too which were thus established began to act. Actions within actions went on happening to such an extent as to defy any detailed description. And finally, they brought him into such a condition that he became entirely devoid of the awareness of his passing through innumerably different actions. All these actions which have taken place have taken up a form of solidity. Now, this thing or condition defies all efforts of removal. It has arrested or enveloped him in itself to such an extent that he lost even the awareness as to what has happened. New phase blossomed further on. He saw the world, the way of living created impressions, the influences of behavior set in, speech and hearing influenced him, events created their impressions, worries took possessions. Now he assumed an entirely different form. Now listen further. These things which had come into him in the form of blemishes started to attract things synonymous to themselves. They get still more plastered up. Just consider for yourself as to what form it was of and what it has become. The original particle or droplet was so suppressed that even its tint does not come to view now. Not only this, but the thing which has entered fully and which you have made so powerful and are still making it more so is also having very intense actions in it, and you are drawing the influence from the natural forces in direct proportion to the intensity of the actions happening in it. It is like a condition of a waterfall before forming into a river. Some drops came down the mountain and collected behind the river head and began to drop down. Some of the snow and some of the water aided it. Thus its quantity and the magnitude of water went on increasing, and gradually it took the form of a rivulet. It went further ahead. Some water percolated in it. From here and there, the stream grew up further. Somewhere it dropped down to a low level and thence rose up comparatively to a higher level till self springs issued forth in it. What happened further on? The pool of water which had collected from here and there mingled in it. The flow began to grow more, since the plain ground or the matter catchment area has got much more expansive due to the earlier flow. The water began to come in great torrents. The river has grown up to such an extent as to be denoted by the word ocean only. Now, what is its condition? What was the beginning and what is the end? It is the same as that of a baby which becomes man after sufficient growth and development. The origin of waves which are manifest in the river is nothing but the results of those karmas, actions, which have helped it in taking up that form by joining on the way. These are the very same ripples which people consider as the waves of bliss in the end. This condition prevails to a great extent during the period of youth in the life of a man, when enough plastering would have happened. The condition of the ocean can be considered when man comes to that form, which should be considered as the result of many actions. Here, Babuji Maharaj is explaining us about the condition at the beginning and the condition at present of we human beings. Here, many forms of the current came into being from that origin. All these things had descended with a particular purpose from their original source. And these were the powers which started functioning in different forms. And these powers showed their such influence which was needed wherever required. So, in fact, there were powers which began to act in numerous ways and produced their specific effects according to the needs. So, the current which descended from that origin manifested into different types of powers, and those powers were descended for a particular purpose and began to act in different ways depending upon the requirement. So, all these powers manifested from their original source in the form of current displayed their specific action also. For this, Babuji Maharaj is quoting the example of a baby. So, if we consider the case of a baby, which could not even move when it was born, we all know that. And after certain time, he developed to stand, sit, talk, and run also. That means those capacities were well within that baby in a dormant way. And afterwards, slowly, those powers began to develop and the capacity started growing in it. The full vigor of man, it bloomed, which was compressed in a baby in the beginning, and further it has taken up a different form after its development and growth. Now the question is, what was the original state? It was the same drop which came to its share. Now, many things began to get mingled in that drop, which we have named as veils within veils or coverings. How this has happened? We are the reason for that. That is, because of the habits of the mother and their effect, the thoughts of the father and the method of training, education, and thereafter the things created due to the influence of others. All these things began their own actions and reactions and thus established the superficial impression on a person. And those two which were thus established began to act. And actions and reactions started within a person. And it went on forming the layers after the layer. That is, the grosser form took its shape. And further, what happened? That person became entirely devoid of the awareness of his passing through innumerably different actions or the impressions of his surroundings, thus making it highly impossible to remove. Further, it has arrested or enveloped him in itself to such an extent that he lost even the awareness as to what has happened. And now the new phase blossomed further on, and that person saw this world, the way of living. All these things created impressions on him, and the influence of behavior set in. Speech and hearing also influenced him. So, events created their impressions. And what happened? Worries took possession. Now he assumed an entirely different form. See, a baby turned into a man of entirely different nature. For this, Babuji Maharaj is again quoting the example of those droplets gathered together which formed the river. Further, all unwanted things were added during its flow. Finally, it reached the ocean and became the ocean. So, this condition is compared with the condition of a person who entered his youth. Due to the result of many actions and reactions and impressions, which he was carried away by the influence of his surroundings and became entirely a different personality. This example is applicable for all of us. See, that was our original condition in the beginning, and now this is our condition. So, we have to unveil all the coverings which we have gathered all these years, and we should go back to that origin. That is our real state of condition, for which the prayer is needed. It is very much essential tool to make us to travel back to our origin. So, dear brethren, with this, I conclude today's satsang. Let us know more aspects in the forthcoming satsang. Till then, I take leave. Pranams. Namaste.